Hi, this is Elora, an online open-world browser game that I'm making as a hobby. We're on our 5th devlog, and in the last video I told you about my ideas for making the MMO that I would enjoy. It's been about 2.5 months since I started coding, and 4 months if you include research and planning. The good news is that I've been pretty productive, and I'm actually really addicted to working on it. I basically spend all my spare time on the project, and I even cancelled my RuneScape membership. What I'm currently enjoying most is more the techie infrastructure side of things, and I know I'm going through a bit of a honeymoon phase, but I'm going to compare it to Stardew Valley, which is a game that I have way too many hours on. I know there must be something wrong with me because even for a cozy game, I can't stop that min-maxer approach, and weirdly my favourite part of the game is rushing sprinklers on a new farm. I like having to juggle different things, like sorting out all the farm stuff as fast as possible so that I have enough time to get mining. And once I create those first couple of sprinklers, the watering gets a bit quicker and I have even more time to get more ores. Eventually everything is automated, so then I can start to focus on other stuff like bundles or the townspeople. Honestly, that early game stress and the pursuit of making things more efficient for myself is my peak enjoyment, which is probably not the intended way of playing. But bringing it back to this project, I'm enjoying creating, the sprinklers for this game. I'll come back to this idea later, but let me first show you the progress that I've made since our last devlog. So the first change was a big decision, and that's to change the camera from orthogonal to perspective. The big consequence of this is that I can't use the pixel art shader that I made in Devlog 3 anymore. This is because with a perspective camera, the objects get smaller the further away it is, but the pixels are still the same size, so objects become this really tiny blob. I have to go back to the drawing board for the art style. That doesn't mean it was a waste of time, because I still have the infrastructure of applying shaders to specific meshes or the whole screen, which I'll definitely use in the future. So I guess why did I make the switch? It's mostly about the open world part and how I want to create those visual moments that rely heavily on composition. This is a lot harder to get from an orthogonal view. Tessolator, who was the original inspiration, had a video on using a combination of orthogonal for close objects and perspective for distant objects to achieve this parallax. This solution seemed overly complicated for what I needed, and I only noticed recently that his camera always faced the floor, which was different from my use case. There were also a couple of issues with the way that I coded my shader. I only noticed after I had uploaded the last video, but the grass looked really blurry, and that's because I was pixelating the whole screen instead of just the player. But if I were to only pixelate the player, I would get these artifacts on the outline that were kind of spillage from the original shape. So sadly, I'm going to have to abandon the pixel art look, but I already have a lot of ideas for a new style that is really similar in essence. So after that, I moved on to some really simple animations and added interacting, which is the exact same logic as our 2D prototype from the first devlog. As you can see, I can move around and click on nodes to start mining them. This is all with the left click only, so this would work on mobile as well. I can also move the camera around now, and I needed to change how the billboarding worked for the grass. This is also groundwork for the new art style that I have in the works. But the thing is, I'm really struggling to design what the player would actually look like. There are so many factors to think about, and they also rely on other gameplay decisions, like how would the player customize themselves, and what type of gear is equipable. So at this stage, I'm going to stick with this temporary model and the temporary animations. Now that I have the game logic sorted, I wanted to combine everything that we've made so far. So our 3 segments are the networking logic, gameplay logic, and lastly, the graphics logic. All these parts are pretty decoupled from each other, which I'm proud of, and it was surprisingly easy to combine everything. It only took me a day and I had a complete version of 2 months worth of progress. I have a lot to clean up, and there are a few parts that seemed a bit rushed, but the functionality is there and it's all working. Now, I thought it would be interesting to give a little tour of how the project is set up and my current workflow. So I use VS Code, and I have 2 projects here, so one for the client and one for the server. For our server, it's just a Rust project, But to test it, I need to host it on my cloud server. So when I edit stuff on my local computer, so I can just change this to Devlog 5, I can push the changes on Git. Then after that, I can go to my Google Cloud and go to our terminal. So once this is up, we can go to our servers folder and then run git pull. So this will download our changes. And in this folder, we also have our security certificates as well. Now we can run our server. The server that I bought was really cheap, so sometimes it runs out of memory, so I just have to run it again. Right, so now we can see our changed message, and I'll leave this server up while we move on to the client. So now we're in the client project, and this is actually 2 projects in one. So we have the TypeScript website that we're hosting using this command. And we can just open it like this. And it connects. And I also have the Rust project here as well. This is where I store all the game data and handle all the logic. So when I export this, I run this command and it compiles straight into the websites folder. For the networking stuff, this is in TypeScript and it basically relays the messages straight to our Rust side. It's also in charge of sending those messages that are packaged by the Rust side. So I have all my 3D rendering stuff in one file, which I do need to organize. But the nice thing about using the web is that I have built-in hot loading. So as you can see, this is normal light. And if I just change the color and save, it will automatically update to yellow light. So that's how the server is currently set up. If you have any advice on how I could do this better, I'd gladly take it. Now, to be real, I can feel myself rushing a little bit, and I know this will impact the future me on this project. So I think I want to take a step back and really create something that I won't have to rehaul in the future. This goes for handling all errors, having readable code that I can go back to, and properly organizing everything so that when the project does grow, it won't get out of hand. I'm just trying to have direct but purposeful progress. Going back to the Stardew sprinklers, I think this is the same concept of tech debt. If we stay in this analogy, you can fish or talk to villagers at any time, but if you just focus at the start to have your crops watered automatically, that gives you so much more freedom down the line. I think this goes for coming up with ideas for the game. I feel like this is actually the easy part compared to coding something that's scalable and ready to handle all those ideas. So I'm going to slow down and carefully create an even stronger infrastructure, as well as some developer tools that will help me in the future. In the short term, I want to make a world editor where I can focus on my art direction and on optimizing how I can load the open world dynamically, specifically for the web. I've been really looking into stuff like baking, chunk loading, and LODs, and that's where my current interest is in. I also really want proper visuals so that I can make edits for them. I've been already making playlists for future intros, and I'm saving the perfect songs for more than just grass. Also, this world editor will save me a lot of time in the future, and I believe it's worth the investment. I'm going to leave it here for now. The next devlog might take a while, but trust me, I'll be back with quality. If you want to keep up to date, you can subscribe, and thanks for watching.